Thanks for listening. Yeah. What did that play? Oh, that was faster than I thought. Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Say Things, episode 89. So when I do the intro, I have to look at the bars that show the volume, and then when it stops showing anything, but it felt like that was way faster than normal. So
you know what I love
anyway,
about you, Shannon? You don't do
I'm very unique.
retakes then. You just like whatever.
Yeah.
I messed up the timing. Let's go. Like,
I
why
mean,
do you
do
even
you want
ask
me
me if
to
I'm
do it
ready
again?
nowadays? Why don't you just start the podcast and then it's like, oh, by the way, we're live. Hello.
Well, we had to do sound check and all that garbage, but yeah, that's true for the most part. How are you doing, Cinder? It's been 1 week exactly since we've talked.
Yes. I'm all right. It's as usual. There's not very much happening. It's pretty rare that I've got a new interesting story just because of COVID and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But fortunately, interesting thing is happening to other people, so we get to talk about them instead.
True.
And imagine that we had something cool going on.
Well, we do have one thing that's going on that's very cool, and that is patrons. We have a lot of patrons.
This
and
is
for
true.
the In Bruges tier, the most prestigious tier that we have to offer, these following names, we thank you. Cinder, you can do the first half.
Okay. We've got hiding from a pack of my horrible sons who are mad I named them all Laramie.
Laramie.
Is this the guy? No, it's not even
It's
the
a new
poster guy.
person,
Okay,
I
we'll
think.
get to that. Sam Davey, Suns fan. I forget to update this frickin' thing. Please just let me just send you one book of Sword of Truth, Wizard's First Rule.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's a great answer.
Thank you for your offer.
Chakar, Bojko Ustavka Mutro. Wasn't the first word a different one than these so far? And the second one, I think. Oh, he's changed. Okay, everybody changes their names nowadays. Fab Daddy, the Mega Pope, Tins, TI in New Zealand, Zan Xavier, Suns Fan Pudge Omegalol, Nate Sicko 01 Hamscroats, Bacon, no, not that Bacon, the other Bacon, and removing the Justin Bieber poster inside my ass and replacing it with clown shoes and one rook piece in chess. That's the same as last week. He has not changed that one.
Getting old.
Lick and Shark TM.
Thank you as well to freshly seasoned Goat Balls, the Ben Jackson and Ben Broomhead Alliance, Novi Panda, Dop, Eating Chosneck makes you happy and healthy.
True.
Fane _man. To help lobby for the In Bruges podcast episode, please put Cinderin, please, somewhere in your name. United, we can conquer Cinderin. Yeah, good luck with that.
I'm a country.
Pitch Black, Wooden Aftertaste, Done Talk, Dyslexic Lawyer, Anonymous, Peter, I figured it out using my superpower, being Danish, Niebling, and Ronnie Keel. Thank you, friends. Thank you all very much.
Knebling.
Knebling.
Say. Yeah, oh, never mind. I was about to say it right, but stick with Knebling.
Okay. First order of business, Cinderin. The Super Bowl is upon us. The NFL has, it's continued on without any real stoppage of play thanks to Corona, which I guess, I don't know the details of how many players have been missing and all that stuff, but the season is done. The playoffs are pretty much over other than the Super Bowl itself. And the interesting thing, Cinderin, is the matchup.
Just didn't make it, Shannon.
We have Patrick Mahomes. Of course, this is NFL football for people that are. Patrick Mahomes, who I don't know that much about because I don't really follow football that closely, but he's considered the best player in the game right now, and he won the championship last year with the Kansas City Chiefs. And he will be playing against Tom Brady, who could not. I don't know the details of what happened with the Patriots, but they didn't re-sign him for whatever reason, and he wanted to keep playing. So he went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they are now in the Super Bowl, and he is 43 years old. So I'm not a big... I didn't like him on the Patriots because I just hate the Patriots, but I don't think there's any arguing he is the greatest American football player of all time. regardless of whether he wins in the Super Bowl or not. What I know you follow football a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first thoughts are it's a shame that the Packers didn't make it because they're the team I cheer for. But that said, though, just being honest, I haven't watched a game this season. I've really been disconnected from the game for a while, but it's still nice to see if the Packers do well. That's
like
the
to
level
check
of
the
investment
score
I have
the
here.
next day.
This is the American sport that I'm most invested in, and I still didn't watch the game, but I cared more about it than I did about your shitty basketball or baseball or whatever.
Yeah, so it just goes to show you guys that
that was rude. That was rude. You're
Cinderin
less good.
Cinderin does literally nothing but play Dota because he doesn't have time to not only watch In Bruges after a year and a half, but also not watch his quote unquote favorite team for his whole life in American football, which other than esport, like traditional sports, is NFL your favorite? Is that your favorite sport? American football?
No.
Tennis is.
Tennis or badminton, I think, or snooker. I like watching snooker.
Okay, this conversation's over.
Curling is also good, actually.
All right. Thank you so much, Cinderin. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting. I mean, I typically do watch the Super Bowl. Is that something you will stay up for and watch or not?
Statistically, no. Considering I watched no other games, I know some people only watch the Super Bowl, that it's way bigger internationally, but I don't think so. Like the reason I would watch the Super Bowl is if there was an event with friends where we would get together to watch it, but I reckon we're not doing that in these times, right? So
yeah, I mean, obviously the biggest issue that probably starts at like I would imagine 2-3 a.m. for you anyway. So, but in America, it's very very hype. It is the most watched shit ever, pretty much. Other than this podcast, of course. So, getting on with the actual news of the week, Cinderin. The Dota Pro Circuit has officially begun. We can talk a bit about the blog post that was posted.
Sure.
It's almost been a week now, where they tell everybody where to find all the streams and all that good stuff. The watch tab, which we'll also talk about. But the first thing I want to talk about before we get to the watch tab is this little blurb here. If you've been following professional Dota for a while, you'll know we've explored a few ways for you to cheer on your favorite teams. In the coming weeks, you'll be able to back your favorites by purchasing content packages featuring in-game effects, sprays, emotes, loading screens, and of course, chat wheel lines from your favorite teams. This content is coming straight from the teams themselves, and they are submitting some great stuff for you to equip across your account. So, let's discuss this, and then we can get to the watch tab. So, what are your thoughts on... Because we were kind of speculating what would be available, what would be purchasable for teams, right? So it doesn't sound like pennants are even a thing anymore.
Okay. How about this? How about we do a tiny little guessing game on voice lines? What we think is something the players really iconically have said that could be in the game because it's not too extreme, so to speak, and that people will want. I think Secret will do U13 Mana Boy with Puppy, for example. I think that will be in there.
I don't even know what that is, but okay.
Do you not know that reference? Are you not a Dota fan? Do you not watch the NFL all the time?
No.
Hello, come on, man. What's your favorite games?
U13 Mana Boy?
You don't know that one? Okay.
No. Keep in mind, I'm not.
What else?
Even though it may seem like it, I'm not big into memes. I know that's crazy, mind blowing.
Yeah,
I'm not big into memes.
What else do we have? I think Mind Control submitted quite a lot of sounds, but they got denied.
Yeah, probably. One thing I will mention is Sajidine and I are actually working with 4 Zoomers. And we are helping them out with literally, well, Nikki's doing all the quote-unquote assets that require actual skill to make. And I will be in charge of voice lines.
Oh, boy.
So I'm not going to spoil anything, but there may be one that I am hoping beyond fucking God gets in, but it might not.
Does it have profanity in it?
There's no profanity.
Oh, you have good chances.
I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm really, really excited. I promise you this, if it doesn't get in, I will tell you guys and maybe even display it here for everyone to hear.
Yeah, and then people can riot against Valve and be like, how did you not put in my favorite sound?
Right. So I don't know how much has been quote unquote leaked in terms of specifics, but I know the specifics, so I'm not going to say anything, I guess.
Right.
Like in terms of how many of each that you'll quote unquote be available to get. But having said that, it is cool to see. Again, they don't give any guidelines in terms of the voice lines. All they talk about is like the quality being good and being MP3 like they don't really give you straight up guidelines of what will or will not be accepted.
Oh my god, you know what voice line I want?
What?
I want Kuro saying "Stop thinking about winning." That will be the best voice line ever in this game.
You think people will buy that?
Oh, dude, I would buy that. Stop thinking about winning.
Somebody in chat actually reminded me of
And
this.
then maybe we can get an edit that says "Stop winning."
So the best voice line easily, and I was actually thinking this last week. What? Play more like Seb?
I just saw that in chat. That's from TrueSight.
I mean, easily the best voice line center, I think we can agree, is Drop Your Stick. And I was genuinely thinking about reaching out to Eternal Envy to see if he'd be interested in collaborating. But
he's not in the...
Right. He's not in... I mean, that doesn't matter. So.
Oh, yeah, the teams can just submit sounds that aren't even from their players, can they?
Well, if they get permission, I'm sure. I mean, they can't just randomly, without permission, do whatever they want. I mean, they could, but I don't think Valve would accept it. But yeah, spray paints. We talked about this before. I haven't really seen that many people use spray paints in general. I feel like it's not nearly the same impact like that Counter-Strike would have. I would say emotes kind of the same. Like emotes, they'll come up occasionally, especially when they're attached to like voice lines. But voice lines are the big one, right? That's the big seller.
Yeah, for sure. Chat wheel's the big one. Easily the biggest one.
So
I feel like we've had this conversation before, but is there really like it's obviously hard on the spot, but do we feel like there's nothing more that you could do here? Like, is this as far as you can go? Let's assume they don't want to do cosmetics on characters. That's fine. If you don't want the heroes to get new items based on team designs or whatever, because it's too difficult or whatever. Can we imagine another way to create value for teams than this?
Well, keep in mind, do they even mention? I know they mentioned it before for sure. So there's going to be a TP effect as well, which again they've done that many a time.
Can you imagine something that hasn't been in the game yet? Like, is there something we could think of that would be cool?
Like never been done for a team, or never in the cosmetics?
Never in Dota yet. Like, just if we try really hard to think, just it doesn't have to be like precise, but just some sort of like overall concept that could be used to help teams in the game.
Ooh, yeah, on the spot, I can't. I'd have to think about it for a bit. I'm sure there's some stuff that they've done in the past that is not added to this, but it's probably by design. I mean, having said, like, there's still a lot you can do with emotes and spray paints. Like, we're gonna try to meme it up, as it were. But
in my experience, both emotes and spray paints are used less than once per game.
So, okay, having said that, especially for spray paints, I think if it's a really good spray, like the spray paints have not been that good. They're not interesting at all. If it, like, as an example, let's say there's a picture of somebody's face, unnamed person, Cinderin.
Right.
I think that's potentially a good spray paint that people would be more interested in using, as opposed to whatever's in the game right now, which is, I literally can't think of one. So, but yeah, we'll see. And I think this is one of those things where it's going to be, for the first season, let's see how it goes. We can improve upon it as time goes on. It is a little weird that this isn't out already because, well, we'll talk about this when we talk about the DPC, but like especially in NA, that like it's getting close to the point where a team or two literally can't make it in top 2 anymore. So it becomes less interesting for, certain teams depending on how they've done. But yeah, this is something I'm sure they would have wanted to come out beforehand, but they didn't. So yeah, the teams need to submit everything, so that's another delay. And then you need to filter all the garbage out, which I'm sure takes some time as well. But in the grand scheme of things, not a whole lot of time has been given, right, for this kind of thing.
That's also what I'm thinking. Like, what did they expect here? Like, When was this post from? January 19th, so a week ago. Wasn't the league already going a week ago?
Well, keep in mind that teams were already reached out to before this.
Right.
But I know firsthand that it's not that long ago.
Okay.
Hasn't really, especially a lot of these teams that are unsponsored. They don't have like this is why we're involved with 4Zoomers because I knew they weren't going to do shit. Like either they're going to just put in the absolute worst garbage because they're. I mean, every Dota player is mega lazy. So I don't know if you know this. Have you noticed how lazy they are? Holy, they can barely even take showers every day for God's sake. But
Dota takes up your entire brain.
But yeah, like I
and
know
then
there's
it twists it and destroys it from the inside over a long period, over
right.
years. You lose your ability to do other things until you have nothing left but a hollow skull.
So that's what happens when you play too much Dota. That's good to know. But on top of all that, these teams need to have access to people that can actually create good-looking assets, especially like the 3D model. Like you need legitimate artists to do this stuff, right? So
yeah,
a lot of these teams don't have access to that at all. So I'm actually interested to see like what like a lot of the lower teams. I think Division 2 they're doing this as well, if I'm not mistaken. So
oh really?
Yeah. So Arkosh is
yeah,
going to get.
It doesn't say here.
Arkosh is probably going to be the second best selling in NA behind EG, right? Just on Slacks alone. So
yeah, there's a good chance Arkosh could sell well, especially if they put in, if they really play into the ritual stuff. Like if they could get something into the game that is Arkosh-esque, that would be really cool.
Now, do you
and actually might also even just look nice, even if you're not like.
Well,
really
knowing
into
who's involved with them, yeah, it's going to look nice. But what do you think about Pennants not being there? I never hated. I feel like they just gave up on it. You know, I feel like Pennants were fine. It's kind of cool to see how many people are watching the game that have purchased your bundle. Like maybe it's not going to be a huge amount then. Maybe that's something they're worried about. I don't know. What do you think?
What if? So,
I mean, for all I know, they might be putting it in. I don't know.
In other games, multiple other games, as a matter of fact, you can get drops from watching pro games. So,
true.
What if you tied that to a pennant of your favorite team?
So you get an extra.
People who really want drops could buy multiple pennants, be fans of multiple teams for a chance at drops, and the ones that only care about one team could buy their team's pennant, so they have pennant first of all to support, and then can get drops when they play. And obviously, if you want to be really strategic about it and min-max or whatever, you would buy a pennant of a team that is likely to make it far, right? Because then they will have more games.
True.
Is that
no? That's
idea?
Not true. That's only for the major.
Yeah, I feel sure. The thing is, I feel like something that other games do much more. We've actually talked about this in a previous episode some weeks ago. Is that Dota currently doesn't give you a reward for playing very much. There's a little bit of Dota Plus shards, but outside of Dota Plus, other games with completely free-to-play concepts, you get a reward for first game of the day or logging in even, or there's like a drop, or if you play X amount of times per week, you get this thing. It's like a ladder or whatever to get a reward at the end. And it might sound like, who cares? But trust me, it has to make a difference. When so many other games do this to keep their players engaged and active, you can do that on the esports side too. That's my point. These reward systems for watching or engaging with the game will give you more viewership. And technically, you could say, quote unquote, it would be fake viewership because people are just there for their reward, but not necessarily to watch the game. But like,
who gives a shit?
Who cares, right?
Yeah,
you want numbers. You want it to look big. You want people to tune into the game. You want them to, in this case, like sponsorships and advertisers, it might not be that relevant necessarily for the major or whatever, but I'm not exactly sure how they're going to run that whole thing with that. But you get the idea. Like,
I actually think that's a really good idea. You can hook up your Twitch account to sync with your Steam or your Dota 2 account. So there's ways to get it to work via Twitch as well, not just Dota TV, which I think that's kind of a big deal because a lot of these, tournament organizers want you to watch the stream over Dota TV because they have extra production stuff and, all that good stuff. But I think they're not going to do it this season. I think for season 2, that's really good. I like that idea a lot. And it would be more like
they did this. They used to do this for TI. Remember, they didn't do it on
Crimson,
Twitch.
the crimson
But
shit.
we had drops. They weren't crimsons. It was just these or it used to happen for Pro Dota in general. Remember, you could get these items that would drop whenever somebody got a mega kill or a
Right.
killing spree or Beyond Godlike or something. In Pro versus Pro teams, some of those items are worth a lot still because they're very, very rare. I wonder why they stopped doing that. I feel like if you feel like the market gets flooded with too many people getting these items, lower the rarity, but make it still a thing. Make people want to watch for the chance of getting something really cool. And maybe what you could do is you could make the very rare items few and far in between, like very, very rare, and then have a pool of more common drops that are not that high value, similar to like Rylai spins. Like, they're putting in these Rylai spins every year, and you're literally rolling for nothing almost most of the time. So those could be drops, and even if the drops you get aren't super cool, it's still something.
See, I like the idea. I mean, I think it's
tokens
important.
Or whatever. You get a token, you can spend it on any set with a rarity of up to X, so people can choose their reward. You get my point.
It's important to have the general items like that available, the general drops, because you have to fill out the space. But I think it's really important, if you were to do this, to have team-related ones. So every team, like let's just talk about the spray paints alone. You have X amount that you're allowed in the game, and you make one extra one that is a very rare drop in certain instances, and you just make it like really cool, so awesome. People have to buy multiples to increase their chance. Like that gives more revenue for the teams. I think that's really good. I think that's a win-win for everybody. And like you said, who gives a shit about fake? Dota viewership is dead. It's dying very slowly, gentlemen and ladies. But I mean, Overwatch does this to keep their game alive. Why can't we? Okay.
I'm just trying to think about other big games. Is there another big game apart from Dota? And I'm not saying we have to be like everybody else. Like, remember, there's some things that Dota does that are really good. This philosophy is about design or whatever, where it doesn't follow everybody else, which makes the game as great as it is. But you can't say that you can't learn from other people as well, right? Our game is not perfect. There are mistakes. There are things that can be done better, especially on the organizational side. So, like, I'm trying to think of another big game that doesn't do anything of this, right? I think in CSGO, they still have tournaments that yield drops. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, maybe they took that out. I don't think so. I think there's still drops for watching CS.
No idea.
I think League of Legends have stuff where you tie with your account. Like you said, Overwatch has stuff where you tie with your account. I mean,
the big one is
shocked if
what is that FPS
Valorant
game
doesn't
called?
have something.
Well, Valorant had the beta sign up, right? The drop for beta originally.
Right.
The viewership was
a huge
absolutely
event.
Insane. What is that? Not Arkosh. What am I thinking? The FPS game that's absolute garbage that Slacks loves. Maybe chat can help me out with this, where you basically don't fight anybody for like an hour. You're just camping, and then eventually you die.
World of Tanks.
All right, nobody's.
Somebody's saying Rainbow Six.
It's the one that's tied to Twitch account. Tarkov, thank you, Tarkov.
Escape from Tarkov, yeah.
So they're one that have drops, and their viewership will go crazy for like, I don't know, a week or whatever, and then it'll just die down again. Every game seemingly does it. I don't know why.
It clearly has an impact. Like, that's the point, is you can't deny that that's a draw. So why not? Like, I'm trying to think of the cons here. The reason I'm talking about rarity of items and flooding the market is that that's literally the only con I can come up with. Is that you devalue certain items. So
okay, let's move on to the watch tab, Cinderman.
Yes.
So for those that haven't seen it,
segment.
Those that have not been opening their Dota in the last week, the watch tab now has a DPC section, which has a home, which kind of has like a score ticker at the top. It has a built-in, I think it's Steam TV stream, right, of something that's going on, depending on what. I think it might just be random. I don't know how they choose that, but and then standings section and the schedule. So 3 new tabs within the watch tab. Very clean. We probably don't have to talk about this too much, but I think the one thing missing right now is a spoiler-free button, which I know people have been. I don't know how much people care about. I would care about it if I was waiting to especially based on time zone, if you can't watch a game or something like that. So that's honestly, other than that. And other than like the cosmetics, I'm not sure where that's going to be in the whole menu, but it looks really, really good. I was pleasantly surprised.
It feels very American style.
Yep,
I am sure this is something you don't think about because this is what you're used to. But there's something about seeing this match ticker and the way things are organized that really reminds me of like the way they do in the NFL when you look up scores online.
Yep.
I can't really put a finger on exactly what it is. I'm guessing some viewers or listeners can give input on this, but
how does it look in Europe, Synderen? I don't know.
No, so like I think it's mainly the ticker in the top, but maybe it's just because I'm not enough into sports. Like maybe this is more universal than I think it is, but for some reason there's nothing bad about it. Like it's good design. It was just something that just stood out to me as something I noticed, that this felt like a American system way of displaying it, just like the genre, if you will, of how things are displayed in this. But it's informative. It's clear how it works. I love especially the thing in the bottom with all standings side by side in all regions is really nice, that you don't have to like scroll through it. You just see everything at one glance with how the leagues are doing. That's very, very nice.
Yep.
Little bit unfortunate here for Nigma, of course, that their short handle, because it's only 3 letters, their short handle is Enema. I think Valve could have maybe helped out Nigma a little bit. They're already struggling on that front.
I mean, let's think about this for a second.
Unfortunate.
Well, like if it's 3 letters that fit, I mean, what it technically would be absolutely an abomination, right? So Valve probably looked at that and was like, okay, let's just make it Enema, which is hilarious, but at least not racist. So,
yeah,
God, that is so funny. That is so funny. Although, sorry, Neon, that's 4 letters, so they could have done 4.
I think the cap is 4. It looks like the cap is 4.
Right, they're just trying to not even get remotely
very
close.
few teams actually have 4 letters.
Yeah, most of them are 3.
For some reason, LGD is PLGD.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not going to see the PSG in that if you're anyone. So I don't think PSG is like, thank you. That was very important for our brand. Like,
they could have done PSGL, Synderen.
Yeah, they could have called it that. But then nobody knows it's LGD. So that's also bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if they asked the teams, actually. I wonder if they asked the teams to choose their letters up to 4 or not. If they just decided for themselves how they're going to shorthand teams. Because usually teams themselves would make their own like tags, right?
True.
So
yeah, I don't know, actually.
It's 2 to 4 letters, it looks like.
Maybe when we have Weeha on, we'll ask him. Just put that in the list of many questions that we want to ask about their name. Okay. Next thing on the list, just the overall DPC. We can kind of go over some of the results. I have been paneling with Jenkins and Caudle Guy for the NA DPC, so that's the only one I've seen, Synderen. Hopefully you can fill in some of the rest. But for North America, I actually wasn't 100% sure what to expect, but EG, obviously their full lineup now with Ice Ice Ice. They've never played together, and then even the other 4, we haven't really seen them play in, it's like 4 months, like some ridiculous amount of time. So there's a little bit of a feeling that there might be potential for another team to unseat them, or at least give them some trouble. And so far we've seen them face against 4 Zoomers and Sad Boys, which Sad Boys is the Fear PPD squad, and EG beat them both 2-1. And especially in the 4 Zoomers one, it could have gone 2-1 for Zoomers if they had won game 1, which was kind of a back and forth.
Yeah.
So EG looks mortal, but now the interesting thing about the NA thing is, I think personally, like the 4 teams that have a chance to be top 2 is obviously EG, 4 Zoomers, Sad Boys, and Quincy Crew. So now that EG has already beat Zoomers and Sad Boys, even though it was 2-1 each, if they beat Quincy Crew, it feels like it's basically a given that they will be number 1, because the other 4, no offense to them, just much less established. And probably, I mean, they could take a game off EG, I guess, but I cannot see them beating them. So EG right now on top.
That's the thing that's important, is it's best of 3s, right? Because usually tournaments that have BO1s can have a lot more variance, but EG being able to drop a game every series against lesser teams is just so much of a safety net for the bigger team. Best of 3s will always favor the better team over best of 1s. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say that EG looks like they will get top 2 basically now already from those 2 wins. Yeah. Apart from that, other regions there was some wild game in China. I don't know if you heard about that one. It was an 89-minute game between, who was it? It was between Astra. I think it was Astra and LGD, right? Had this absurd game 3, 88 minutes with like 4 rapiers, all sorts of shit going on. So That's probably the best, or at least the most entertaining for most people, game out of the region for this week one. The standings there, really, I don't really know. So this region for me is really, I'm not as in touch with Chinese Dota as I have been sometimes in the past. I've never really been an expert on the region, being honest. But like the names that people will remember from this region primarily will be LGD and Vici Gaming from the international stage. And Vici is currently 2-0 and LGD are 1-1. A team I thought could look really strong this season is Elephant. They're currently 0-1. They lost 1-2 to IG. So the current top four in China as it stands are Vici, eHome, Invictus, and Aster. But again, it's one game for many of these teams, so it's a bit early to start drawing conclusions based on just these few series we've had. But that's how that stands. In Europe, to nobody's major surprise, I think OG and Secret are lossless. They won 2-1 though in both their series, and maybe to some people's surprise, Nigma are 2-0. They have 2-2-1 series, one against Alliance and one against Liquid. But notice the amount of 2-1s, right? Week one, every game was a 2-1 except Liquid versus Viking, which was 2-0. So close games all across. I don't know if you want to go through every single region every week with updates, or
we can take maybe some feedback after we do it this way this week and see what people think. I think I will probably bring up. I think this will be a weekly topic first and foremost. I will probably bring up NA every time because I'm going to be paneling the entire time. I think EU we should bring up every time, just because it's the most popular and the highest skill that we know of, since we don't really follow China that much. And then if we know of any notable things that have happened in other regions, we can mention them. Otherwise, it's just NA Europe. Is that fair?
I guess we could just give a quick. So did you only want to do those, or do you want to do the rest of this week as well? Every region.
Up to you, Cinderin.
Okay, I want to mention CIS quickly, and then we can leave it at that if you want. So, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, no Techies is Solo's team, right?
Yes.
If I don't remember
Crystallize
wrong. Yeah, okay.
Solo.
So the big stories here so far is Navi completely destroyed this week. Like they just ran their opposition over. 2 30-minute games against Unique and 2 or actually a 20-minute and a 30-minute game against no Techies. So Navi are off to a really hot start. They're 4-0 in their games. Obviously 2-0 in series. And no Techies is 0-2. So Solo's team off to a really rough start. He seems to really need a win right now. Like he had the reunion with, was it both Ramses and no one, and it just fell apart pretty fast. That team that they rebuilt,
yeah,
which was supposed to be the new CIS powerhouse, they gave up after like one tournament.
Yeah,
and Sumail, yeah, that was that team we talked about in the podcast as well. What they could do, that fell apart. Now he's doing no Techies, and they're at the bottom of the scoreboard right now. So looking pretty rough for him already. Like being 0-2 is already really bad in this format. Like, so the thing you care about is getting top 3. Recovering from 0-2 is a long road.
Like usually, I don't think it would be that big of a deal, but I think something that has been complained about, and maybe we could talk about this a bit, is the fact that this is 6 weeks, so it seems like it's a lot of games. It's not really that many games. So yeah, getting off to an 0-2 start is crippling potentially.
Yeah,
unless you really turn it around.
You're playing 7 total series, so they can get 5-2 at best now.
Yeah, teams are playing like once a week, sometimes twice. It puts a lot more importance on the games, which I think that aspect is cool. But 6 weeks seems like too big of a stretch. Just from, I don't know. I think there's also been complaints about like time. Like I know that Europe has been going way over time. So it's like, why don't we just do this?
2 a.m. the other day.
Like, why don't they just like split this up into more days then? Like, wouldn't that just make more logical sense? But I know that's been the biggest complaint. I don't know what it's like from a spectator standpoint. I'm sure it's bad as well. So maybe for next season they can switch things up. Obviously, too late for this time around. Yeah, what do you think?
I guess some of the good things about this is that no matter which region you're from, you watch Dota, it feels like you're watching part of an overall story arc, right? Because there's something in whichever region, whichever time zone you're in, there will be Dota to watch from your region in the same time slot, right? Like every region has games. And if you're a really big Dota fan, you can watch Dota 24/7 almost right now. So, I mean, that's good, right? But yeah, the span of the tournament and the individual team stories are really, kind of dragged out because of its one game per week. I don't know if condensing this down would be better. If you condense it down, how do you even do that? Like, every region has. Then you need games to be played at the same time, right? Within your division.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do. It's not any one other way to do it.
Actually, that's just wrong what I said. So I just realized the way the games were played in week 1 was 2 games on the 19th, 1 game on the 20th, and 2 games on the 23rd. So with that logic, you could have definitely played more games on the days in between. And therefore, you could condense this format down to 4 weeks instead of 6. But the question is that good? Making it more intense like that so that the team stories are faster, but the content lasts a shorter amount of time.
Right.
I think that's always going to be a discussion. One of the things people love about TI is how long it is. But at the same time, you could make TI way shorter if you wanted to. But it's part of the spectacle, right?
That what you playing with there, Cinder?
Grind.
It tickled my ears there. What was that? Got some ASMR going?
Oh, I just had a pen.
Oh, you should think about creating an ASMR YouTube
Hey, do you have this, Shannon? Have I shown you this before?
No, what is that? Is that not?
This is called a fidget cube.
A fidget cube?
Yeah. So it has all of these things that look like they could be explosive devices at any time. None of them do anything except make sounds.
Oh.
So you can fidget with it. It has a thingy that you can roll. It has different buttons you can press. It has a switch. It has a disc that you can spin. If you have fidgeting issues, get this. It's very good.
Is that for children?
Children and me, apparently. Although I had it lying on the side for a long time now, and I just rediscovered it, and now I'm playing with it again. There I go.
Wow, you just can't keep your hands off that thing, huh?
Do you fidget?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, then it's not for you.
I have restless leg syndrome.
Can't keep their hands still.
A little different,
If you fidget,
I can't help but move my legs. Okay, let's move on, Cinderin. We'll see what the feedback is for the DPC, which will be a weekly topic.
Yeah.
Don't think we really need to spend much time every week, but maybe just getting people apprised on the regions that they're interested in.
Maybe we should catch up on the regions we didn't do this week. We have updates on them next week, because then there'll be way more.
Oh, if you want, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a tweet by Mr. Cyborg Matt, the one and only, about the development of the upcoming Overwatch feature for Dota 2, which we've talked about ad nauseum before. He posted some screenshots, which I will read a couple of them now. So there's a part where it says, watch the marked selection of the timeline marked in red. The case will autoplay to the next marked section. You can disable autoplay using blah, blah, blah. Each marked section is labeled as suspicious, cheating, or griefing. For cheating, be on the lookout for the use of scripts or cheats. For griefing, be on the lookout for negative actions towards other players, such as feeding, ability abuse, etc. Suspicious markers may be a mix of both. So I'm assuming this does not include communication abuse, right? For listening to voice comms or reading text or anything like that.
We're going to lose half our player base. Let's hope people come back.
Right. So that's
so
giving
people griefing sometimes.
No, it's true. It's true. And then another part, let's see. So when you're submitting the Overwatch resolution, it's very similar to CSGO. The cheating, hacking, and scripting, you basically just choose one of 3 options. Insufficient evidence, not guilty, or guilty. And then the same for griefing or abusive behavior.
Yeah.
So it's good to know now what they're looking for, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing overall, because it sounds like it'll be at least helpful in some regard, but I don't see anything for smurfing, which I don't think you could have included in this anyway, but that still leaves that big issue on the problem
that they need to solve. I don't think this is something you can put on the players. It's not fair, and it's going to be abused the hell out of, because as we've talked about before, people have standout games. Everybody who plays this game will have games where they do very, very well, and they will have games where they do very, very badly. And that could be with and against the exact same players in those 2 games. The conditions could be better. You could be having a better day. You're just feeling yourself. Everything is just working. You have those games where fuck yeah, everything I'm trying is just working this time.
Fuck yeah.
Then you have other games where you try to make 20 ganks and all of them fail. Like the enemy team have great wards, or you're just missing spells, or your teammates' communication's bad, whatever it is. So you can look amazing and you can look like garbage in 2 subsequent games. And that's the game. That's Dota. So being able to report people for smurfing is really tricky because, yes, in some cases it can be blatantly obvious, but there will be so many gray areas that I think Valve just want to avoid it altogether. That people start getting reported as smurfs because they have a game that they go 15-0 because they just played great. Even for your rank, you can go 15-0 in any bracket if you play your rank. If it's a good game for your hero and you play well.
So what do you think about what's being shown now?
Hard. I think
Will
it's
you
good.
spend time doing this, Syndrin?
See, that's the thing. I think you need to incentivize people to use the system. I don't know what they did in CS:GO. I think either having something that you can display on your profile, where you being like a police officer, like whatever you want to do. If it could be item drops, rewards, something exclusive. Something exclusive would be a really good incentive. That will get people excited. If there's exclusive stuff for doing this, doesn't have to be cosmetics, but could be something in your profile or some sort of backgrounds or emotes. A police officer spray, that would be hilarious. You get the idea. That's the way you want to go with this, I think.
Right.
And my question is, if this gets implemented, do you think the player count will go up or down?
Up or down?
So what I'm thinking here is, there are a lot of shitheads in Dota. There are so many. And if this gets implemented, unless everybody just magically fixes their behavior, there will be a lot of people banned. A lot of people will be banned from this. Between cheating and being griefers and whatnot, even if it's temporary, okay, there will be bans. How many people are not playing right now because the system isn't in place? And when it gets implemented, how many people will be like, oh, yes, the game quality is going up. I'm going to start playing Dota again.
Don't they just replace each other? Isn't it just an even swap? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't
think there's going to be much change.
A thought experiment for me. And even if the player count goes down, that is not necessarily a bad thing. If the player count goes down 5%, but the game quality goes up 50%, that is a trade-off I would take every day. No problem. Of course, we'd rather have good games with decent people than having a high chance of playing with idiots, but having more players. I was just wondering what you thought the ratio would be. I don't know if many people will start playing again because of this.
That's true.
I'm sure people will get banned.
I think if it's going to ban a bunch of people, even if it's temporary, it's going to be faster than what it would bring in people. But I think slowly but surely those people will trickle in, right? This isn't like one of those things. Oh, we're coming out with First of all, the name itself is going to turn people off. Let's be real.
Valve releases Overwatch. Nope.
To Valve's credit, it was called Overwatch in CS before Overwatch the game was ever a thing. So I understand why they're doing it.
So why aren't Valve? Okay.
Yeah, they never trademarked it, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of odd. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it works out. I don't think people are going to be flocking to the game because of this, but it's just one of those things that's needed, sadly. So only time will tell.
So I'm seeing a comment in chat right now. I just want to address this. I'm seeing a comment saying they're surprised I'm saying that and that smurfing is a major issue. I've never said smurfing isn't a major issue. We talk about this every time. It's a big problem. My point is the players can't moderate it themselves. That's the issue here, is that I'm not trying to downplay smurfing and be like, people have good games, people have bad games. I'm trying to make a point of how difficult it is for a human to determine based on one case whether someone is a smurf or not. You will have two types of people voting on this stuff if you put it into a system like this. You'll have the people that will always side with the player and be like, yeah, this is a doubt case. They played really well. They could not be a smurf. And then you'll have people that are like, you went 20-0. You're a smurf. You can't do this in this bracket. You're too good, you know? And you also have this definition problem. Like, when are you a smurf? When is it too much? Is it if a 7K player plays in 4K? What if a 7K player plays in 6K? Is he still a smurf then?
Yes.
What if you just played bad for a month and dropped an MMR and now you're catching up and starting to play well again? Like, how do you moderate the system in a way that's consistent? That's my problem. With cheating, it's way easier because it's binary. You're cheating or you're not, right? Like, are you hacking or not? With griefing, it's binary. Are you griefing or not? You're tossing teammates in on purpose, or you're running into the enemy fountain.
Well,
like, it's not very difficult.
There's a gray area with griefing, technically speaking.
Yes, but in many, many, many cases, there's no gray area, right? So for smurfing, for me, the gray areas are way more prevalent than in the other cases. That's my point. Like, there's just so many where you can be like 100% without beyond any reasonable doubt, this was cheating, or beyond any reasonable doubt, this was griefing. Like, no questions asked. We just know. You watch the clip, you're like, it's obvious. With smurfing, you need to second guess yourself a lot, right? Like, yeah, did you just play great? And the final thing is it against terms of service? Like, I would want, so cheating and griefing, I believe both are just flat out against terms of service, right? So you want to punish people for that. It's in the game. It's in the description for the game, how you're supposed to play it. It's not against terms of service to have multiple accounts. So if Valve wants to take a stance, first of all, they would need to change the terms of service. So you're not allowed to have multiple accounts, or they need to solve the problem so that they allow people to have multiple accounts, but they fix the problem automatically through detection in the game. That's, again, I still think that's the golden solution here, is some sort of machine learning detection of smurfing.
Build that robot, Cinderin. You can do it.
It's still, I know I've said it many times, I know, but there's still people saying I'm downplaying smurfing. I just really want to cover it, that is the inherent problem for me.
All right, so the name of this episode is the episode where Cinderin defends smurfing, right? I think that sounds pretty fair.
Oh, fucking great title. That's some good bait.
Next thing on the list, this came out earlier today, and has not been verified that I know of, but we're just going to talk about it because it's speculation. But the thread says, LGD CEO arrested. Sources in China, but no official confirmation. VP Game and LGD CEO Ruru, also the COO and CMO, and number of staff at VP Game were arrested last week regarding skin and beans betting on VP Game. What is beans? Is that a typo? I don't know what the heck that is.
Maybe you could bet beans in China.
This continues a trend of arrests and criminal charges being levied at prominent esports figures and companies in China for similar reasons. So, I mean, this probably won't be a very long conversation, but what are your thoughts on that? Because I've been told by many people that bet, like, throwing games in China is very prevalent, very common.
There is some really bad shit going on with some Dota. I don't know if it's only, I think, like, my gut says that this is a bigger issue in China and in SEA than other regions, but, like, who knows, right? There's so many games that we don't watch, that we don't know about.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me if this was a grander scheme. This is a bit conspiracy-esque, like, are there people behind the scenes running the scene, telling the teams what to do, blah, blah, blah. But it's a story that I could buy based on stuff we've seen happen, right? Like the newbie players getting banned, which was something recent. If some of the greatest of the game can get banned, like even TI winners end up getting involved in match fixing, then TI winner and TI runner-up, it's not looking good.
Right.
So yeah,
we talked about
I kind of believe this. The person who posted the story deleted it, by the way. Read into that what you will. But
really? So if I refresh, it's gone, is what you're saying?
The post is deleted. Yeah.
China got to them.
But yeah. I mean,
but we talked about Faith. Wait, it was Faith that was banned, right?
Yeah, Faith was a TI winner, and then you had why do I not remember his name right now? What the hell? Moogie. Moogie also was in that team. He got second at TI7.
For people like that to be involved, I think my impression was a little bit different. And Brax, I think, kind of corrected me on the interview that we did with him. But for people like that to be involved means that in all likelihood, they were essentially forced to do something like that because of the way that things are done for whatever reason over there, how corrupt it is, the power other people may have. I mean, we don't know the details. We can only speculate, but it sounds like it's just become one of those things that is just expected of you, depending on, who you're dealing with business-wise. So it's not as clear-cut as, it depends on the region as well, but it's not as clear-cut as what I was originally imagining. Like, why would you do that just for an extra buck? But at the same time, maybe you're threatened to do it. I don't know. I don't know the details at all. So will be interesting to see what happens with that. All right, last topic of discussion. Our friend TI in New Zealand will absolutely love this topic. Gabe Newell, who has been in New Zealand for basically a year now. I think he was there, I forget for what reason. I think it was just vacation. And then COVID just started destroying everything. And New Zealand, one of the few countries that is handling things extremely well. I I don't know their numbers right now, but it's been 0 or close to 0 for a long time now. So Gabe Newell has been essentially just residing there for a long time. He's looking for dual citizenship. There's been questions about whether he wants to create or to move Valve over to New Zealand, and I think his response for the most part is it would be kind of cool, but at the same time, I don't want to uproot people, especially during this time. But the big question is TI in New Zealand, Cinderin.
Yep.
So his response to that question, whether that's a possibility, is I quote, "It's a realistic possibility, and it gets more realistic all the time. I literally could not, if I had to guess when it would be safe to do an in-person tournament anywhere else in the world, it would be very hard for me to say that. Whereas I think with a lot of confidence, we'd be able to plan for that in New Zealand. Hopefully the procedures can be put in place so that becomes feasible. Like, this is what the quarantine would look like. As long as COVID keeps mutating, it certainly is increasing the likelihood that we'll be having events here." So based on the trajectory in the US alone right now, even with the vaccines coming out, this sounds more likely than anything, actually, is for TI to be in New Zealand.
Wasn't it currently announced that the current plan is to have TI in August in Stockholm still? Or was it just that they plan to have TI in August?
Oh, that's true.
Do I
What
remember
did
this
they
incorrectly?
say? Yeah, actually, I think they did say Sweden. I had to look it up again.
I believe the plan for now, I don't know why I'm confident in this, because it could just have said that TI is in August, but I thought it still said that it was going to be in Sweden.
Well, they don't make very many blog posts, so I'm sure we can just look it up real quick.
Like there are some really big. Obviously, there's one huge pro to having TI in New Zealand, which is COVID. But beyond that, isn't it just a lot of cons? Like travel.
The International 10 is happening in Stockholm in August. It does say that.
Okay. So, like, if you imagine you have TI in New Zealand, filling the crowd, travel for teams and talent, it's very far from everything in Dota, right? It's not a short trip for anyone except SEA, technically, I guess.
Yep.
Which isn't necessarily an issue. Like, it's just if we start talking about pros and cons, to me, the only pro New Zealand really has is infrastructure right now because of Corona. Like 2 years ago, somebody would have suggested we do TI in New Zealand. No way. Like, it would be very far down the list of where it would happen.
One benefit is it could, in theory, help promote the game in that region. So then you have like an Australian/New Zealand region, theoretically, if things blew up.
If you want to promote Dota in New Zealand, you should probably fix the Australia servers first, though.
That can come. That can come with the money you make from the next battle
there's
pass,
incentive to fix it.
That's true.
I think, I don't know. I think obviously, if everything stays as bad as it is, it's a great solution, right? To go there, if that's the Corona haven that we have. But then the question also remains: well, if that's the Corona haven, how easy will it get to get all the players in? Like, you can try to host a tournament there, but the local regulations will need to allow people from literally all over the world to travel in.
Well,
even with self-quarantining, I'm not sure that New Zealand would allow that.
I mean, considering the sway that he has, and I'm sure he would promise other things in terms of, bringing whatever from Seattle, potentially even Valve themselves. I mean, you can force people to quarantine for a couple of weeks. It would require more time, obviously. But, I mean, what are you doing anyway? Like, if TI was in Stockholm, aren't you doing the same thing, essentially? It may be a little bit more stringent, more strict in New Zealand because of the way they do things, but for the better?
I think New Zealand should... Or well, I don't know. Should is a weird word here. I think New Zealand probably has stronger regulations for travel. If you have a country that is basically quote unquote clean, then you're very, very careful with letting in potential spreaders to your country so that you start an epidemic that you defeat, right? Whereas in Sweden, you have strong travel regulations, but you can still get in for reasons, right? Like, right now, for example, for the DPC, we have talent that even flew in from North America. Some of them got denied at the border, fogged, and BSJ had to travel back home, which was terrible. But a lot of talent got in from different countries. If that's in New Zealand, I don't know. Like, I'm just guessing here. I'm not certain. Like, maybe they're with the right quarantining, they're open to it. But man, there's so many different countries, so many different people.
I think this would have to be something
traveling
that
in.
Gabe himself would negotiate with New Zealand. Literally, that would have to happen. Because I agree. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they'd be very strict in general. I mean, how long can you not show symptoms for, or how long until you can't? What's the right way to even like the first couple days you have COVID? Sometimes you'll turn up negative, right? So as long as
Yeah.
you get to a point where that isn't possible and you're still coming up as negative, then it should be fine. So it might not have to be 2 weeks anyway. It could be less. I don't know the actual numbers, but it's
Yeah, I'm not
possible.
completely sure.
And it sounds like based on what I've been reading, New Zealand is really liking that that Gabe is there. So it could be in both entities' best interest to work together, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
See how much sway Gabe actually has. Okay. So with that, let's get on to the Patreon mailbag. We'll do a couple of these Cinderman. The first one is from Nate Thicko01 Hamscroats, who asks, is there a certain patch you remember that was your favorite, or at least favorite from over the years? And is there a specific map layout that was very memorable? And what would you specifically like to change with the current map? Does anything
I can answer
to
this
mind?
one first.
Sure.
I'll tell you my least favorite map of all time, but this is a trip down memory lane. This is not even Dota 2, but I want to talk about it anyway. I like telling this story. There was a patch in Dota 1 called 52E, which was absolutely awful. Thinking back, that was probably the worst patch we've ever had. So picture this: smoke doesn't exist. Smoke was introduced, I think, in .6 something. Maybe it was 60 or 66 or something.
It was late. Yeah.
There's no smoke. In this 52E patch, there is no limit on wards, and couriers can ward.
Oh, really?
And smoke doesn't exist. Can you imagine what kind of gameplay we had in that patch?
So,
like, disregard what the meta was or whatever.
but
Just
wards
think about that macro.
Wards were not free back then, obviously, right? But still
Right.
unlimited.
They cost, yeah. You would literally have a 5 warlock support a Terrorblade in lane, babysit him, and then buy wards all game, ward everywhere, and Terrorblade would farm. And the late game would be who has... There was like 2 types of games. There was a hyper late game version, and then there was our team has an incredible timing toward the end of the mid game version. So a hero like Visage back then had a lot of familiars. It was a different hero design. So I think that was a hero that was played in that strategy where you would farm 1 or 2 items and then you would be overwhelming. And then if you could defend against that with Terrorblade, you could win late game. But like, it was very boring, I think. That was probably... A lot of people will say in Dota 2 probably will say that the worst patch would be the TI4 one just because they remember the finals, right? And it being these like stomps. That patch was actually pretty good. It was just unfortunate that teams figured out a flaw in it toward the very end of that TI.
Mm-hmm.
People remember TI largely for the finals and the semifinals, right? But the group stage of TI4 was awesome. There was a lot of very good games, a lot of cool strategies. But yeah, in the end, it wasn't that great. So that's my least favorite one. You can do your favorite if you have one.
I don't really have one. I mean, least favorite metagame, I guess you could say, would be the Troll Jug patch, which was that prior to the first DAC or something like that? It just felt like very... It felt figured out. Was it Troll Sniper?
There was a
Troll Sniper Jug
patch, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, Jug was in the 2. Yeah, those 3.
It was just like the same shit over and over, and it felt like it was solved like super fast, like faster than a normal patch would have been. So games were just super boring. So that's the first thing that popped in my head. In terms of changes to the map, I mean, I've talked about this a million times. I would love a second Roche. That'd be hilarious. But I'll be honest, the way that Roche, like the location of him and all that stuff, has evolved over the years to be much more positive in my viewpoint, because it used to be terrible. I always hated that Dire would just have an inherent advantage. I hated that for so many years. And for so many years, by the way, every pro player would be like, it's fine. It evens out when you play both sides. I'm like, dude, this is why I was so in favor of having a symmetrical map. Remember, I was talking about that way back in the day for DAC, and everybody would just shit on me and shit on me. And guess what? We're not at a symmetrical map, but it's gotten so much more symmetrical than it used to be.
Getting there.
Way more. So
okay, let me ask you this. So this is not the exact same thing, but like the map has definitely got more symmetrical and more quote unquote fair, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Dire's win rate is terrible in pubs because they don't have Roshi advantage, but that is what it is. Do you think the map layout itself, not whether it's mirrored or not, but just the layout right now is a bit too simple? Does that make sense to you? Like, we've had these spots that have eyes on them that are like, this is a good place to ward. You could consider warding here. It gives really good vision. Like these like very specific high ground spots that are for warding. I feel like if you go back 2 years to the older map designs, the map was less obvious, so to speak. Like now, advanced warding is about being creative with placing them in bad spots that are good because they don't get dewarded, which has always been the case, but it feels more, it's like more necessary now because there's like a designated 8 ward spots that are just super much better than everything else, and therefore they get dewarded a lot. But then you have obviously to get creative. Whereas beforehand, maybe there were, let's say, 16 ward spots that were all decent, but none of them were like super mega good. And then dewarding became about figuring out which one of all of these good spots are the enemy team using. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense to me. And it's funny that you're bringing this up to me because you're obviously this ward connoisseur, you know, thinking extra levels to fucking warding where I don't give a shit. Put a big fucking sign that says ward here, deward here. I don't give a shit. As simple as possible because I hate warding and I never do it.
Okay. If you step aside from it for a second, let's imagine it's not you doing it. Let's just think about the game. Okay. What do you think then? Do you think... I think for new players, this is good, right? It's easier to figure out good places to ward and good ways to ward that give you a lot of information.
You're basically saying that you miss the ceiling being a little bit higher in that specific part of the game. Where for me, I feel like the game is already complicated enough, and we've dumbed it down a little bit. It's not just that part of the game.
It's when you think about how to say it. It's not just the warding itself. It's the map layout, right? When those ward spots are that powerful, it's because the map is laid out in a way that makes them that powerful. It's not just because, you know, we put a hill here. The reason it's so good is that not only does it cover a big amount of area, but the area is also integral. You could have technically put these hills in different spots, but they're placed next to really powerful objectives, like towers or next to the big camps in the jungle or ancients or whatever, right? Like to give you an example, let's say there was a hill in the middle of the river in the center of the map. Like, you know what I mean, right? Like then the type of objectives that are around it, it's very much telling the player what to do kind of thing. That's how I feel about it. And that's something that's, in my opinion, happened to Dota over the last few years, is that the game is telling us more and more what to do instead of letting us decide. That like, here are bounty runes. You have to fight for these. You got to take them. Here are neutral items. You have to farm jungle or you're going to fall behind. Here are the ward spots. You have to, at least to some extent, ward here or you won't have sufficient vision. Whereas, go back 2 or 3 years, here's the map. Good luck. You know, do what you want. Do you want to play a split push strategy? Do you want to fight? Like,
if you were to ever have a kid and you wanted to teach them how to swim, you would be the type that just fucking throws them in the water, right?
That is a very bad analogy because this is a video game and not about life or death.
I mean, Dota for you is life or death. We've already established you don't watch anything else. You don't have any social life. You do literally nothing other than play and watch Dota. If I were to have a kid, you know, I would gently introduce them to water. I would allow them the choice of what to do, and I give them some tips along the way. That's what Dota should be because the game is too hard. So no, I don't sympathize with your god-awful warding meta game that I don't give a shit about, Cinderin. No, it's fine. I understand what you're saying, though, to be fair. Forced objectives...
This is the primary reason, in my opinion, that split pushing as a key strategy has been dead for 3 years now.
Good.
It's because of forced objectives.
Good. Fuck split push. Hate that shit. I still die. I still lose to split push. I see it in my games. Arc Warden, Cinderin.
It obviously it does exist, but it's way harder to pull off. Way harder. Way more specific. It was a big part of Alliance's TI3 win, if you remember. The way they played the map. The type of strategies they ran at TI3 would really not fly right now for the most part because of changes to the map. You can't really play like that and expect to win a world-class tournament anymore.
I mean, forced objectives.
And you can be a fan of that or not. My main point here is I think how to explain this. on a macro strategic level, like how many options you have for how to play the game, I think the game is more limited in that sense, but everything else is more complex. More items, more heroes, and
It's
all
just
this
more
kind of stuff.
quantity.
But
It's quantity. It's not
yeah,
like what's the best way to put this? I mean, I think okay, I understand where you're coming from, and I agree to a certain point that forced objectives can get a little stale, but I think they've done a good job of kind of bringing them back a little bit. And I also
yeah,
think
for sure.
that you have
The
to understand
outposts are
that
definitely better than
a
shrines.
very, and I know that a lot of people that are watching this, it's going to be kind of polarizing. Some people are going to agree with me, some people agree with you. I promise you, beyond anything else, a very large percentage of players that do not watch anything related to Dota, they just play as casuals, which makes up a large majority of our player base in general, will agree with me, and we should be catering more to them. That is what I think
Has the
very
player
strongly.
base improved since we've made these changes, though?
No, there's no there's no new player experience to begin with. These are good things to have in place as icing on the cake, but you're missing the fucking cake entirely. No cake has been baked.
I'm not talking about it from a new player perspective here. I'm talking about it from the perspective of if this is better, then people that used to play Dota should want to play it more, right? Is it
Who's
just
not
because
playing it?
everyone's getting older and they don't want to play Dota anymore? They don't have time for it. Is that it? Like, maybe it is. I'm just
You're
thinking.
asking people that have played this for 10 years to play more. It just people gravitate towards other things. It's a perfectly natural thing. The only problem is we're not replacing them with anybody. That's the fucking issue. It's been the issue forever. Sorry, I get really upset with this fucking new player experience. It just tilts me beyond belief. Jesus Christ. It's 2021 for God's sake.
I'm just saying here, my point isn't that this is the reason people aren't playing. My point is what I'm saying is we obviously don't know this. We can't check the numbers or whatever, but I don't know if this directional development that we've had towards this forced objectives and more defined gameplay or whatever, if it has been better or worse for the game overall and for people enjoying playing it. Maybe if we hadn't done it, we would have even less players. I don't know. I'm just saying, when you take the game in this direction, it becomes more like other games, right? That's my point. That was something that made Dota really unique, was that it was almost like a sandbox with all of these fucking heroes and options, and you just use the sandbox to make your strategies and make your plays. And now it's saying, here's a sandbox, but you need to check these and these and these boxes, or you are less likely to win. In the past, it was largely, can you kill Roche or not, right? That was kind of a defining factor for your strategy. But now there's just way more, like, I've made my point. Like, I'm just,
I understand.
It's just a thought. Like, I'm not
going to go.
to conclude.
I'm not going to. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail anymore. I will just close my statement with: I understand why you feel that way. I respect why you feel that way, but I disagree wholeheartedly. And I think that
so you like the
most
game
player
more
base
with
would
this.
agree with me.
Yeah,
I think the game is more fun right now than it has been in a while. But I think the biggest thing is there's so many unique things about Dota. Taking one away doesn't really detract that much because it's already an infinite amount. Okay, last question, which I guess we'll do. This one will be a quick one. From Pitch Black, Lord of the Rings series has been announced to be aired late 2021 with 5 seasons planned. Are you guys into Lord of the Rings? Would you be shocked if the series would get delayed? Would you even watch it? I'm trying to remember. You do like Lord of the Rings in terms of the movies, right? Did you read the books or anything?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you're going to be a bigger expert than me.
Back when I read books, so like 15 years ago.
Okay.
Probably.
Thoughts?
Yeah, something like that.
Are you excited?
I didn't even know this was happening. This is great news for me.
Yeah, that's what happens when you only play Dota and watch Dota and do nothing else. I don't know.
Do you know?
I have no idea. I mean, okay, I'll give my answer as you do your typical Google search, as you didn't research any of this outline beforehand. But yeah, I didn't I read The Hobbit when I was a kid, and then I started Lord of the Rings, and I really didn't like the writing style. But the movies are like, that's the best trilogy of all time. I don't think it's even remotely close. Fucking ungodly, just the best. And yeah, I would definitely watch this. I would not be shocked if it's delayed, but I would 100% watch this easily. Be interesting to see like if it's on Netflix or if it's just on actual cable TV. I don't know.
Yeah. It looks like it's on Prime Video. So it's an Amazon production. It says here, Amazon bought the television rights for Lord of the Rings for $250 million in November 2017, making a 5-season production commitment worth at least $1 billion.
Wow.
This would make it the most expensive television series ever.
Not surprising. I mean, Lord of the Rings is a huge IP. So does that mean we can stream it on Twitch? Don't people do like these Prime watching parties? That's fucking sick. Now the question is, do they release them all at once, or is it weekly episodes coming out? Because if it's weekly, then it's super hype. That would be really cool. Man, that could be a big boost for Twitch, doing like different things other than gaming. That's pretty legit. But we'll see. Hopefully it's not garbage. That would be unfortunate if it's garbage. Now, if it's going to follow the exact same storyline as the movies, I doubt, right? It's probably just in the universe. Who knows?
No idea. I mean, I literally just heard about it now.
Did you read when you read the books, did you like the writing style? Like, what did you think of the books versus the movies?
Oh, it's a long time ago. So the Tolkien books I read were Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and Silmarillion. And I think for a lot of people, it's kind of a turnoff how much he describes the world. But I think ultimately my favorite movie from the series, and probably my favorite book as well, was the first one. And so I think there's a lot of good stuff to be said about creating a universe that is really detailed and really it's immersive on another level when you explain things in that much detail, but it also becomes a longer read, right? I hope in the series that they spend a lot of energy and put a lot of attention to building the world. I really think that's something that made Lord of the Rings as cool as it was.
Hal Steen in our chat, he says the show is set in the Second Age, so it's set before Isildur chops off Sauron's finger. That's cool.
Okay.
That's really cool. Okay.
That is the chronology. That's after. I think Silmarillion is really early.
Yeah, I don't know when that one takes place, but
yeah,
it's before The Hobbit and all that, like way before that shit, right? So
yeah.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to that. All right, thanks everybody for watching, for listening. Cinderin, have you seen In Bruges?
No. Bye.
Bye. We say things that don't mean anything, but thanks for listening.